If your content marketing looks good but isn't driving meaningful results, you're probably losing more than just time. You're losing trust both inside your company and with your customers. Most teams assume the problem is creativity or distribution when the real issue is that their content isn't aligned with their business goals from the start. But once you apply the right framework, content stops leaking value and starts working as a system. When I work with business teams and marketers to tie content to their business goals, I use a simple framework that ties content to business goals by design. I'm going to share that framework with you now so that every piece of content you produce actually gets used and can be connected to business outcomes instead of disappearing with no proof that your content marketing actually worked. So let's start where content actually fails. Marketing teams can work hard, publish consistently, and still see scattered results. Content gets created, shared, and archived without a clear explanation of how it helps sales, partnerships, or revenue movement. Everyone feels busy, yet outcomes remain vague. And here's the gap. Most content planning focuses on formats and topics and channels first. That approach skips the business logic that gives content direction. Without deciding why the content exists and who will consume it, performance depends on luck rather than structure. And this is where my SAUCE framework comes into play. SAUCE is a 5-part decision-making framework for content marketing that serves as a pre-creation, business-focused filter, forcing clarity before a single word is written or a video is recorded. It defines what content must accomplish, who it serves, and how it will be used before execution begins. And just like the slogan from Frank's Red Hot Sauce, we put that ish on everything, every content project that is. To make sure the content isn't unremarkable and bland, we put sauce on it. Let's get into this framework because it restores clarity by forcing intent, ownership, and contribution up front. SAUCE organizes thinking so execution becomes purposeful instead of reactive. Here's the framework starting with S. The S in SAUCE is for strategy. Strategy defines the business objective the content supports. It clarifies whether the goal is visibility, brand lift, lead generation, thought leadership, or relationship building. It prevents content from existing without a measurable purpose and aligns marketing output with broader business priorities. If you're not clear on what strategy is, then you're probably often confuse it with tactics. So let's be clear. Strategy is the long-term, big picture plan to achieve a goal. It focuses on the future and requires deep thinking and rarely changes, as opposed to tactics, which are specific short-term actions taken to make the strategy happen. They're often flexible and happen in the here and now. So the S in SAUCE is strategy. It anchors content to a real long-term business outcome. And when strategy is defined first, success criteria become clear and content avoids drifting into activity without direction. Next is audience. The A in SAUCE is audience. And audience defines who the content is for and where they consume information. It identifies primary buyers, the influencers, the partners, or secondary stakeholders. I often like to use the example of selling children's shoes, where you actually have two audiences. You have the child who may want the shoes, but you also have the parent who is the likely buyer of the shoes. In software sales, for example, you have the users of the software, they're your audience. The operators of the software, they're your audience. The person who pays for that enterprise software is also your audience. Not to mention, even the IT team could be a part of your audience, but you need to understand all of your audience before you begin creating your content. You also have to consider the context, like the platforms and channels where your audience consumes your content and their consumption behavior. For example, attention spans, watching versus reading or listening, active consumption or passive consumption like listening to a podcast while running. This prevents random generic messaging by narrowing focus and putting thought into who and how your content will be consumed. The audience clarity sharpens relevance. When content is designed for a specific group in a specific context, it becomes easier for the message to land and more efficient for your content efforts because you have planned the targeting of your content more carefully. Next up is U for users. Users identify who inside your organization will use the content and how. Your content only reaches the outside world if your company members actually use it. And we're not talking about just the marketing team. Sales teams should be using content in conversations and follow-ups. Your partners should be using it to share with prospects. Between sales, marketing, and customer service, these internal teams should be leveraging it for both enablement or alignment. Again, content creates leverage only when someone actively uses it. Defining users ensures content supports real workflows instead of living passively on a website or being forgotten in a content management system. Moving on to the next important part of the SAUCE framework is C, contribution. Contribution defines how the content helps move the business forward. This step serves to pivot the focus from attribution, which is a trap, to contribution. How does this content contribute to things that clearly do move the needle? We don't want to look at an individual content piece by itself, but the thing that the content contributes to, the thing that in turn moves the needle. The goal is to plan the point of impact before publishing instead of just measuring it afterwards. For example, this content is designed to answer the objection of X when a customer says Y. Now you measure how many times an objection was overcome, not if the content brought a lead or closed the deal. Even though in that case, the content could have been a major contributor, don't start talking attribution. You won't be able to defend it. What you can do is connect this content to pipeline influence, relationship depth, or deal stage. You see, contribution reframes measurement as intention. When contribution is planned up front, content earns its role in business goals instead of defending its value later. Then to close out the SAUCE framework is E, execution. Execution defines how content will be created, distributed, and used consistently. Now we're actually talking about tactics. Before you start, you'll want to establish repeatable creation and distribution processes. Execution considers format, channels, cadence, and reuse. To go deeper, format is text, video, audio, long format, or short format. When you look at your channels, it could be your website, YouTube, newsletters, or social media. Your cadence is how often, is it daily, weekly, monthly? And then reuse, how can we get the most out of each content asset? Having a solid execution plan keeps you from random acts of marketing and reinventing the production wheel for each content initiative. Execution turns clarity into action. When execution is designed intentionally, content becomes scalable, usable, and sustainable over time. So ask yourself, which of these 5 decision points is your team skipping right now? Is it strategy? Is it audience? Is it users? Is it contribution? Is it execution? Frameworks like this are most powerful when they're embedded into planning workflows, briefs, and review processes. So every piece of content answers these 5 questions automatically. This framework is part of a larger process we use called Revenue Content Operations, or RevCo for short. To learn more about RevCo, visit contentmonster.com and also sign up for our newsletter. The link is in the description below. So for your next content initiative, look at the SAUCE framework. The SAUCE framework forces content to justify its existence before creation begins. Strategy, audience, users, contribution, and execution create a clear decision path that replaces guesswork with intent.